What is up, YouTube? What is up, Instagram? Matt McKeever here. Hope you guys are having a good Monday night. I'm in my bathroom. Presumably you guys know what's up at this point in time, but if not, if this is your first time joining me on Monday nights are really just an Ask Me Anything where we hang out, just kind of chill in the bathroom, and I light up and smoke. You're welcome to smoke at home as well if you'd like, but also no pressure. In general, I usually do a little spiel about how I never smoked weed until I was 25. If you look at some of the medical studies and just some of the general terminology on that, it seems like it's pretty harmless once your brain's fully formed. But again, do your own due diligence. But either way, I am going to smoke some weed. Let's do this. Otherwise, hit me up with your questions, YouTube, Instagram. Let's get right into it. Tonight we're smoking wedding cake. I was just saying to Peter before we went live, I don't know if I believe any of the names behind weed, so I don't know what wedding cake really is, but it's what it says on the label. Hey Sauce, how's it going? What's up, YouTube? Oh, got some smoke in my eye there. Whew. YouTube, there's 20 of you watching. It'd be really cool if at least one of you smash the like button, so feel free to smash that like button. Otherwise, hit me up in the comment section. Feel free to ask your questions, and we'll see what's... Hey Sean, no, we have not found a new place yet, but tomorrow myself and Jeff, we're going to go check out a mansion on our way to go sign some paperwork. We're signing paperwork for a new apartment building that we're going to be closing on next week. But the lender on that deal is forcing us to sign in person. So I don't really know what that's all about, but we'll have to deal with it. But at least we're making the most of it by going to go look at a mansion. And this place is beautiful. It's literally got like literally like biblical ceiling paintings. So that seems weird but fun. It's got like a full bar in the basement. It's got like a nice, beautiful glass atrium that's a separate building. Hey, what's up, Janelle? So we're going to be looking forward to checking out a new mansion tomorrow with Mr. Weibel. Hopefully that's the one, because we've been looking at a bunch of places and there's a few I've wanted, but we keep losing. So they keep selling them before we can get them. All right, awesome. Thanks, Die Hard Memes. Scarface, not sure what that reference is. How do you find property managers? Property managers are hard to find, so you definitely need to keep that in perspective. I think one of the biggest mistakes that most investors make is they take what's convenient when it comes to property managers rather than really focusing on what they want. So I really encourage everyone to spend time, check references, and get clarity on really what the roles and responsibilities are going to be of your property manager, and make sure they've got some experience. I've wasted a lot of time and energy in the past with bad property managers, so learn from that mistake for sure. But yeah, just, for me these days, like obviously making sure they've got a certain core competency is important, but also just making sure that they've got like basic street smarts, that they are capable of interacting and socializing with humans. Just got like basic human traits really is what you're looking for when it comes to property managers. What's going on YouTube? Demand for mansions is up. Exactly, Adam Martin. What's your opinion now on student rentals? I think student rentals seem solid, right? Most of the universities are going back one degree or another is my understanding. I don't pay a lot of attention. I actually have sold most of my student rentals, not because I'm scared of student rentals per se, but just because I'm reprioritizing. I think student rentals are still one of the best cash flowing rental properties in Ontario. So I would really, I think it would be difficult to find a lot of other properties that cash flow as well as student rentals. They're still very attractive from that perspective. Just make sure the numbers work. And in general, when looking at student rentals, what I always like to do was figure out what's the worst case scenario. So like, let's say somehow the university, the college disappears. Can you still break even? Can you rent it out to normal people? Is there still a way to somehow make it work? If so, fantastic. Then that to me feels like a very robust business model. See a few people chatting in the comments. That's cool. Hey, what's up, Tyler? Can we still apply for your 1% rule for rental properties in major cities in Ontario with the prices increasing? Depends upon your definition of major cities, but certainly you can still find 1% deals in cities like London and Windsor, Sarnia and Chatham. Those are the areas in southwestern Ontario, pretty much there and anywhere in between. Once you start getting into the KW, Brantford, Hamilton, that area becomes a little bit more difficult. You can still find cash flow, but you're probably not going to hit the 1% rule. So again, it really just comes down to what your business model is and what your goals are as an investor. And you're going to have to figure out what's right for you overall. But yeah. So, a bunch of people joining. Hey Matt, thanks for the videos. Flipping a house now and going to BRRRR laundromat next. That's awesome, man. Eric, that sounds super cool. If you're flipping a laundromat in Ontario, hit me up. I would love to document that. What's up, Mario? What else is going on, guys? Feel free to jump in that comment section. Otherwise, what's going on with me? Just tomorrow, Jeff and I are going to go sign the paperwork for a new apartment building, get the financing lined up, go check out a new mansion, and then just meet up with some business partners and do a little debrief and catch up there. And otherwise, the media team, if you guys were following me on social media this weekend, they were shooting a secret project. Really looking forward to getting to roll out that secret project in the next month or so. So make sure you're stayed tuned, make sure you're subscribed, all that good stuff. What else is here? What website do you use to determine current rent of a property? So for me, these days, I'm pretty in tune just with what's going on with the general market. When learning a new market, the first thing I'm going to do in Canada is go to CMHC. So I'm going to look at the rental reports on the CMHC website and just get a feel for that. Now, those numbers in general I find to be a little bit too conservative, but they're a nice initial benchmark for you as an investor. Then from there, what I'm going to go look at is a few website aggregators PadMapper, and there's a couple others, but essentially just websites that pull from multiple other classified websites like Kijiji and Craigslist and Airbnb and stuff like that, and look at those aggregators. And then I'm just going to cruise on whatever's the most popular source for rentals as well. So here in London, it's going to be Kijiji. Most of Canada, it's going to be Kijiji. I know in the US, Craigslist is often more popular than Kijiji, but those are really going to be the sources I'm going to look at. Hey Matt, how do you make mini offers on properties without knowing all the chattels and fixtures, or do you enter that into the purchase and sale afterwards? So there's rarely, for most of the properties we're buying, guys, the chattels and fixtures rarely matter. So, worst case scenario is I buy the property and I don't get the $200 fridge and the $200 stove, and I gotta go buy a $200 fridge and stove. It's really not going to make or break from a business perspective. So, usually we're just going to write in, if say we're buying an apartment building, 12 stoves, 12 fridges, 12 microwaves. But even then, worst case scenario, if they're not all there or they're not all in perfect working condition, we usually still have enough margin in our deal that we're not really going to be that concerned about anything like that. So relatively, now with wholesale deals, it might be a little bit different. Maybe there is something that's a chattel or a fixture that's really important, in which case, you're just going to write it in. Now, if you're making offers on properties where you don't know a lot of the details, you'll just factor it in as if you get nothing, and then you can always add it in afterwards. Thought on new build on vacant lots, also modular home builds. Outbox homes, I think there's opportunities there, but I think when we're looking at building homes, or when we're looking at, developing land, understand that's a completely different business than what most real estate investors do. And understand usually you're dealing with longer timelines, longer lead times, in general, perception of greater risk. So for me, the return on time, the ROT for things like building on vacant lots just isn't particularly attractive. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of regulations, red tape, longer timelines. And so I'm going to primarily look for like lipstick flips, properties with value add opportunities rather than having to build from scratch. But that's not to say you can't make money doing it. It's just not a business model I'm particularly going to focus on. Do I only smoke on Monday? No, I smoke more than just Mondays, but Monday's the only time I do it on air. All right. Take it you don't do videos on filling drug rentals into higher end rentals. Message you a few times. This is what I do. I don't specialize in it, but I've definitely bought properties that were rough around the edges and turned around the building, and definitely have had very happy neighbors when we turn around those properties. What's your strategy for screening tenants? Being thorough, and also understand that a lot of people will, if you give them the opportunity to talk, they'll talk. And so honestly, just letting those people talk and like just listening to them and gaining that perspective can be quite helpful and just allowing you to learn more about them. So with my student rentals, especially when I was younger and showing my student rentals to potential students, oftentimes the students would just kind of act like I wasn't there. And so they would literally just start talking about how awesome the property is. One of my old student rentals used to have this beautiful vaulted ceiling. And they'd be like, oh man, this house would be amazing for volleyball because of the high ceilings. And it's just like, like landlord standing right here. So it's surprising how often people will just choose to shoot themselves in the foot. So I would just give them the opportunity to chat. Otherwise, do basic things like always call references. If you can, try to see how they live currently, or try and have your property manager see how they live currently. So rather than always meeting them at the new property, offer to meet them at the current place they live, because that will really allow you to kind of see how they currently treat the property they live in. And that can be a very valuable lesson in regards to how they may treat your property. Hey Matt, just wondering if you can refi a primary residence at 95% loan to value, or you refi, do you generally have to do 80% loan to value? Here in Canada, Chris, it's going to be 80% loan to value normally. They're not going to let you refi back into a CMHC mortgage. Now, the only way that's going to be an exception is if you're just carrying out the term of the mortgage and maybe something quirky happened there. But outside of that, no. What's going on? So a bunch of comments coming in here on YouTube. When getting into commercial loan, do you save reserves or use your property as collateral, or is there a different method? It really depends on your business model. In general, we're going to want to have some sort of reserve fund for commercial investing, just because vacancies can be longer traditionally with a lot of commercial rentals. So because of that, we're going to want a bit more reserve fund. What would you recommend teens do to make money that they can later invest in real estate? I think the best thing you can do is, if you're currently not in a position to invest in real estate yourself personally, obviously get around people that are. That knowledge and experience and perspective is very valuable. But even more so, if you can learn a high income skill set, and particularly like sales. So if you can get good at sales, door-to-door sales, in-person sales, that's a very valuable skill set for any real estate investor to have. So I would encourage any teen that wants to get into real estate investment, or really just any individual in general. At a minimum, you should certainly consider going after that high income skill. Looking to get my first rental prop and want to avoid the 20% down for non-primary res. I've heard that if you make it your primary res for a week or a month, you can get away with the 5% down versus 20%. The greatest, so certainly if you read in the rules, I think most people come to the conclusion that you have to have the intention of moving into it as a principal residence, and that you should move into it as a principal residence. Now, if your life factors change, if you end up moving out after you initially moved into it, that's one thing. But understand that lenders are getting smarter now, and CMHC is getting more thorough from what I hear. So it's normal now if you're buying a property that they suspect might be a rental, but you're saying it's going to be a principal residence. I've heard of lenders Googling the property, right, and seeing if it shows up on Kijiji as being for rent, like as in, are they trying to rent it out before they even own it? And I think I've anecdotally heard of maybe 1 or 2 deals dying because of that. It's certainly not a common trend, but at least it's a rumor that I've heard. So you should certainly be aware of that. In general, I would encourage people not to commit mortgage fraud, but I also understand being young and aggressive and wanting to get into a property. I would really encourage you though to house hack. Like, buy a multi-unit property, live in one of the units, rent out the others, and live for free. If you can live for free, you're going to beat all of your peers when it comes to saving. Understand that the average North American is spending about 30 to 40% of their income on shelter. So if you can find a way to live for free, you're inherently going to be able to outsave your peers, because they're all going to have to pay 30 to 40% of their income on shelter. And if you are then saving the traditional 10% of your income anyways, that most basic finance people will tell you is the best practice, well, save 30, 40% on shelter, another 10% just being average, all of a sudden you're at close to a 50% savings rate. And that's a very powerful position to be in, because when you're at a 50% personal savings rate, it means that every year that you work, you're also saving 1 year of freedom. And if you can then inch up past that 50% savings rate, it becomes phenomenally powerful, right? If you can somehow get up to an 80% savings rate, understand that means for every year you work, you're saving 4 years. Plus, if your money's making you money, again, it doesn't take long for that snowball to really start rolling and for you to hit your financial freedom a lot sooner than you expected. And low living costs is a double-edged sword, or like a double whammy as a person seeking lean fire, because the less money you need, like obviously you can save that money faster, but it also becomes so much easier to earn that money passively. So if you're lean fire and you need a couple grand plus a place to live for free, understand that that doesn't need to be that robust of a real estate portfolio. That literally could be a fourplex and 2 or 3 other rental properties, and you could be generating that sort of lean fire lifestyle. That to me is like the secret, building that concept of your financial fortress of solitude, getting to your lean fire number, and then being able to just kind of go experiment, play, and chase your passions. Hey Matt, what kind of CONC would you expect on duplex conversion BRRRR project and a good area in Windsor? Thanks. I'm gonna guess you meant COC, cash on cash. Really depends upon how you're doing a BRRRR, right? But if you're doing a perfect BRRRR, in theory, your cash on cash return is infinite, because because you got all your initial capital back. What do you think of this real estate strategy in Toronto, buying single family house as near downtown as possible, south of Eglinton, transform them cash flow machine? I don't understand what that strategy is, so I don't know what you mean. What are environmental assessments required, or is that a hard question? So environmental assessments usually going to be required on larger multifamilies. If you're dropping more than $1 million on purpose-built building, I'm going to guess they're going to ask for an environmental. Usually you get phase 1 environmental done first, but most phase 1 environmentals will request then a phase 2. Phase 1, I think, is like 3, 4, 5 grand, and I think a phase 2 environmental is like closer to 12 or like 14, maybe something like that. I think overall it works out to usually like almost 15, 20 grand for your environmentals on a multifamily. So it can add up. And then you pay for your appraisal as well. Usually your commercial appraisal, that's like a couple grand. So often if we're looking at buying an apartment building, it's not unusual for you to be out of pocket 20 grand plus just doing your due diligence. So that's definitely a cost that a lot of newer investors don't factor in. Too many people are house poor, especially these days. Yeah, definitely agree with that, Jared. For your multifamily JV partners, do they typically own a percentage of the property, or are they simply private lenders? You can structure it either way. It really comes up to you and your business model as an investor, whether you want to sell equity or sell debt when it comes to financing your projects. I think there can be validity in either, but in general, I'd recommend when doing partnerships, don't look at just doing this partnership and being transactional. I really like focusing on relationship-oriented partnerships where it can be a serial partnership where we can keep reinvesting with each other and keep kind of going back and building a portfolio together, because each partnership is a relationship you need to manage. In any relationship, understand relationships are binary in my opinion. They're either growing or dying. And so if you're not actively growing a relationship, it's most likely dying. And so for that reason, most investors would be better served to have less partners because that's less relationships to manage. Oh man, my throat is killing me. Dry. Hey, what's up? Hungarian Experiment in the comment section. Question, would you ever try to buy a would you ever buy a rent-a-lien property in the States? No, I don't even know what rent-a-lien is. What do you think about buying a larger single family and converting it to a multifamily? It just seems most multifamilies are quite expensive nowadays. Matt, if you're in a market that is favorable to that, if your zoning and city and building department are letting people easily convert single family into multifamilies, that could be a great opportunity. But unfortunately, most local municipal governments and city governments, they're behind the times. They say they want affordability, but then they actually have very restrictive zoning and bylaw requirements that don't allow for easy conversion of single family dwellings into multifamily dwellings. And because of that, a lot of investors, I think, will struggle to find a scalable business model where they can implement that outside of maybe, the few rare urban centers that really are promoting infill projects and density. So if you're in a market that allows it, I think it's a great opportunity, but most markets, unfortunately, are quite prohibitive to anything that is entrepreneurial in nature like that. I listened to you on the FI Canada podcast. I really enjoyed the episode. Awesome, man. Appreciate the love. Well, definitely, if you're new to my ecosystem, go check out YouTube, right? We're producing a high quality video a day on YouTube. Well, hopefully this counts. This is probably the lowest quality video I put out on YouTube, but you guys seem to still like it. I mean, there's 70 of you watching on YouTube and another 25 on IG. So that's pretty cool whenever about 100 people will hang out with me on the internet while I smoke weed. But yeah, if you're new to the channel, definitely check out what we've got going on. There's a ton of information. There's over 600 videos now on my YouTube channel, just like free content. As far as I'm concerned, I'm just trying to teach a PhD in real estate investing. I came in late and not sure if this was already asked. Do you invest in crypto? Why or why not? I don't invest seriously in crypto. I think cryptocurrency is interesting, and I think blockchain is fascinating. I think it's going to be very difficult to have a currency catch on that isn't backed by a major government. Now, that's not to say it won't ever happen. And I actually look forward to it someday happening in our lifetime. I just don't suspect that I have the skill set or the knowledge base to be able to predict who is the winner in that space. And I suspect that there will be a handful of winners and there will be a lot of losers in the cryptocurrency space. So just like, people make money on pre-construction condos, cool. It's just not for me. Same with cryptocurrency isn't really for me, but like I'll pay attention to blockchain. I used to host a blockchain and cryptocurrency meetup here in London for about a year, and I've got maybe a couple $100 max in cryptocurrency. I've got a Bitcoin ATM though. I literally have an ATM machine for cryptocurrency, but we never really got that up and running too seriously. But I love dabbling in those things and learning about it. But for me, cryptocurrency just isn't something where I feel like I've got a competitive advantage. So I'm going to stay away from anywhere where I don't have a competitive advantage. But that doesn't mean people won't make money in it. I have no doubt that a lot of people will make a lot of money. But I also suspect a lot of people will lose a lot of money. Hey, what's up, Kellen? Thanks for your answer. No problem, Tom. What do you think of the strategy of purchasing in Toronto a multifamily house? Yeah, no, I don't understand. South of Eglinton, hoping for the land. So if you're just counting on appreciation, understand that that's essentially the greater fool theory. Now, again, the greater fool theory, can it work? Yeah, it definitely can. Is it a good business model? No, I don't think it is particularly. Now, if you're doing it from kind of a permanent portfolio perspective, or you're simply looking for large diversification and you don't need a particularly liquid asset, and you've got a particular risk profile that makes real estate attractive, then sure, go chase, land speculation, but understand that that's what it is. So for me, I really like investing in real estate for one of two purposes: either earning income quickly, so that could be wholesaling, flipping, some sort of active income strategy, or alternatively, buy and hold real estate that cash flows, which generates consistent income. And that consistent income is what makes owning that asset attractive to me in the first place. How are Airbnbs doing? Actually, surprisingly, I think like in the last month, Airbnbs have been way up. Now, obviously, a few months ago, they were not doing that well, but it really did depend upon your city and what the local rules were, or like your province or state as well. But right now, what I'm hearing, Adam Martin's really happy with what his Airbnb is doing. And I believe that most of our Airbnbs finally started getting back to normal this month. So if it's back to normal and it can stay there, we'll be quite happy again. And again, the last few months, not ideal, but that's part of being a business owner. So no one ever said that this was going to be consistent all the time. Was your first property a house hack or BRRRR? It was a little bit of both, but it was a BRRRR without the refinance part, because I didn't really understand that, so I didn't refinance it until 5 years in. But yeah, it was a house hack, and then slowly just kind of lived and fixed it up. I found a nice fixer-upper that has been sitting empty for over a year. Do you have any tips on how I can find the owner? You can leave letters at the property. You can talk to the neighbors and find out if they can give you the information. Depending upon your local region, you might be able to look that up at City Hall as well. You can also look it up on programs like Geo Warehouse, or you might be able to do title searches. Again, just really depends upon where you live, but there's probably a way. We have not announced yet where we're moving from the new mansion because we don't know yet, but we need to find out soon because we are less than 60 days out now, which is freaking crazy. How many properties do you own personally? How many are JV? Just wondering. Right now, I'm in the process of really rebalancing my real estate portfolio. So by the end of this year, my goal is to have all my real estate owned in corporations. That's just a personal choice. Definitely not that everyone needs to do that. In fact, I'm sure most people wouldn't be well served doing that. But for myself, where I'm at today and where I plan to go, it just makes a lot of sense. So I'm actually in the process of just selling off all my personal properties. Also, because there's just like internet trolls and stuff out there. There's people that will literally look up your properties and just like make infraction claims on every property you own, regardless of whether that's true or not. It's just a pain in the ass. So screw that bullshit. The internet both gives and takes. About to enter into my 4th year of Ryerson, also in the middle of getting my real estate license, plan on using that income to invest into rentals. Awesome, man. That's cool. Would you ever buy a property in the States and then rent it out? Chris, in theory, I would consider it, but I'm probably not going to buy a property in the States just because I don't see what my competitive advantage is there. So if I can get clear on what my competitive advantage is, I'd be willing to buy a property in the States. Outside of that, the only reason I might buy a property in the States would be if it's more of a half business, half lifestyle hack, right? So like buying a vacation rental and then getting the benefits of using it sometime. That might be enticing enough for me to want to invest in the US market, but that's not going to be on a large scale. If I'm going to invest anywhere on a large scale, it's going to be because I've got a perception of having a large competitive advantage. So I just like to stack the deck in my favor whenever possible. Yeah, people, if they've got nothing better to do, they love trolling. What's going on here? Considering recent house prices and the current average rental rate, is the area tapped out for single family rentals, or am I just not looking in the right places? I think if you're looking for single family rentals, you definitely will have to look in certain markets to find cash flow. You can achieve that in southwestern Ontario, so markets like Chatham and Sarnia, you can definitely find cash flowing single family properties. Now, I know that there's investors that say that they invest in Kitchener and Hamilton and Niagara and even the GTA and cash flow. And I think that is both true and not true. So, one, there are investors that do it, but they're structuring their deals in unique ways and they're not usually getting significant cash flow in order to be able to make those claims. So, I don't think their model often works well for investors that want to, like, say, build bleeding fire through spendable passive cash flow. I think that you're going to be better served in markets like Southwestern Ontario. But again, it doesn't have to be Southwestern Ontario. There's lots of markets on the East Coast. There's great markets in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC, Quebec. Pretty much any province in Canada, I'm sure you can find markets that will cash flow well for you. Just you can't do that necessarily in every single city with every type of property or asset class. Ottawa, I think Ottawa is kind of, it started based upon what little I know about Ottawa, it's definitely getting more expensive. I think of it kind of as a Kitchener-Waterloo, Hamilton area. If you've got the right business model and the right financing terms, you can still cash flow. But if you don't, yeah, it's probably going to be tough to cash flow. How do you stay organized even with smoking weed weekly? Any tricks or advice? Live out your calendar, guys. If you're not living out your calendar, understand you're not living up to your potential. So if I could give like one piece of practical advice to my past self, it would be to start living out my calendar sooner. Live out your Google Calendar or your iCalendar or whatever. Schedule everything and then let the fun stuff fill in the gaps. Like outside of like big fun things that are like personally important to you. Like way too often people just let Netflix and generic socializing and things like that absorb their entire day, weekend, week, and months. And they just lose so much of their potential. So for me, it's just living out my calendar, trying to schedule almost every moment. Like literally smoking weed with you guys happens every Monday night at 9:20. That's not by accident. It's literally in my calendar and it's just scheduled there. Consistency is key to accomplishing anything special or anything impactful, in my opinion, is going to take a lot of consistent action. And again, that requires just living out your calendar, that commitment to scheduling every aspect of your life if necessary. But it's worth it, in my opinion. That freedom, freedom through discipline concept. So that would be my number one suggestion. Number two is, once you get to a certain level of success, the next thing you should really focus on if you want to continue growing is just get like the best personal assistant ever. So it took me a while to, one, figure out what that even looked like, and then two, to find the right person. But since Lara joined our team, it's been really allowing me to become a more effective Matt. So again, focus on outsourcing aspects of your life that aren't the most impactful, and focus on what you're best at, what your core competencies are. All that stuff is just so critical to really getting the most out of yourself. If you don't look at yourself as your number one asset, one, I feel sorry for you, but two, I think you're doing it wrong. You are your number one asset. Like, I think of my mind, my knowledge, my mindset as the most important investment, the most important asset I have. There's nothing more important than that. And so what's also liberating about that is knowing that it's the experiences that you make. It's by taking on those big challenges and those big projects, regardless of whether you win or lose, it's having done it and learned from it. And that experience that's going to last a lifetime. And so there comes a certain point where you just have like real confidence that like, I can always do this again if I choose to do it. So yeah. Kellen, I haven't really seriously looked at Northern Ontario. I see investors from around Sudbury and, North Bay and Thunder Bay and all those different markets. Again, I just don't see myself having a competitive advantage to them, so I'm not particularly interested. Now, perhaps for yourself, originally coming from one of those, maybe Sault Ste. Marie has the opportunity to, where you've got a competitive advantage for that market, but don't just go chasing cash flow either. Stick to the lakes and the rivers that you're used to. I don't know. That was a quote from the Umbrella Academy, quoting a song. Kids, ask your parents. Do you invest in Western Canada? And if so, what province, city, and why? I don't. I'm just really boring. I pretty much just invest in Southwestern Ontario and really don't do flashy things. Don't develop land. Don't tear down buildings unless they absolutely have to be torn down. Don't rebuild buildings unless that absolutely has to be done. Really keep it simple. I know that it really aggravates some people how boring a lot of what I do is, but I don't know, it works for me. So, is there an industry standard when putting in an offer on how much you can lowball a deal? Doberman, the first thing I would say is that that's probably the wrong mindset to have. Is there an industry standard to lowballing? You should really just once you really internalize this concept, that you just need to run the numbers and know how the numbers work for your business model. And the seller's asking price really isn't that relative until you know what you can afford to pay in order to make that deal, make that business, make that investment property work for you. So you need to always start with way too many investors are focusing on markets or strategies rather than getting clarity on their goal first. So in Cashflow Tribe, half of what I try and teach these days is just get clarity on your goal first. Then from that, we can start building out a specific strategy and focus on certain markets. And then we can reverse engineer that into milestones and deadlines. But we don't start off with I want to invest here or I want to do this strategy. We start off with, what do I want to accomplish with real estate investing? What does being a successful real estate investor look like for me? And then we figure out what strategy. Then we figure out what market. Yeah, Kellen's just saying some of the best BRRRRs he's seen have been very simple and not a lot of work. Hey, what's up, Mike McCracken? So what options would be available if I'm currently stuck in an area I can't invest locally? find work in London, others, and invest in real estate, or is being an absent landlord more feasible? So one, I wouldn't want to think of it, Greg, as being an absent landlord, but you can definitely be an out-of-town landlord. Now, what you're going to need to do is build really good systems and processes in place, but depending upon, the type of tenant you're renting to, the type of building you're using, you might be able to literally just run the command center from, there goes some ashes, from the comfort of your own home. And if you can find a really good jack of all trades or handyman, as well as a tenant to be able to show the units, or a property manager to show the units for you, you can kind of run like your HQ or command center from anywhere and not necessarily have to invest in your own backyard. Now, for a lot of us, there is a certain comfort level in being able to invest in your backyard, and I can appreciate why we have that comfort level, but understand that that is a limiting belief, and you certainly shouldn't be held back from accomplishing your goals just because of a limiting belief. Now, again, first start with the goal, get clarity on what being a successful real estate investor looks like for you. Then we figure out the strategy. Then we figure out the market. That's when we get into the details. That's when we can build out the milestones and start reverse engineering exactly what we want. How many properties do you need to own to justify having a property manager? Say your goal is to retire. Kyle, it's definitely very vague, but if we're talking about what do you need for a full-time property manager, well, presumably they're going to want to make at least minimum wage, or probably a little bit more. So maybe if they're full-time, that's probably $3,500, $4,000 a month. So let's say it's $4,000 a month, about $50,000 a year. So, you're going to need to be able to do that to the point where it doesn't eat all your profits. If you're going to try and retire full-time off of that, what sort of money do you need? Let's say you need $50,000, your property manager needs $50,000. Okay, we need to generate about $100,000 a year in cash flow. It's about $8,000 a month. If you're buying properties in, say, London, Ontario, maybe you're cash flowing $300 or $400 a month $300 a month per unit, $250 a month per unit before paying for your property manager, or maybe you're cash flowing about $150 or $200 a month after your property manager. Well, if we're trying to earn $8,000 a month before paying for our property manager, let's assume we're doing at least $200 a month per unit in cash flow, we'll need about 40 units, right? So in that case, that's really what you're going to focus on building out. Hey, what's up, Mike Rosart? Mike Rosart, Kellen, all we need is Dylan, and we'd have a London on Fire reunion on Instagram. Is anyone else missing the 2x playback rate option on live feeds? How many properties do you need to own? Oh, we just did that. Where do you hope to see your portfolio in 10 years? I hope to see my portfolio just in a lot of, my real estate portfolio will just be a lot of boring 3-story walk-up apartment buildings scattered across southwestern Ontario. Hopefully, 5 years from now, have about 100 million assets under management, so AUM. Again, that doesn't mean that I'm worth anywhere near that, but I see a lot of value in gaining the experience of building something that large. So again, it's not about that destination in particular, it's about the experiences that building that business will force me to develop. I know that there's a lot of value in doing that. The same way that all the different communities, all the different things that I've built in the past have provided so much value and perspective for each new iteration, each new thing I tackle. Beyond that though, I'm hoping to have a portfolio of businesses 5-10 years from now. Hopefully they're all successful businesses, or the majority of them are. And that's the goal. Yeah, Mike Rosart saying the appreciation on the large AUM is key. I would absolutely agree with that. Definitely a powerful thing. Hey Matt, what's the top 3 advices you would give to a first-time buyer like myself? Travis, the first thing I'd say is don't get emotional. So there's just no value in being emotional as an investor. So you need to be able to park your emotions at the door. And if you find yourself being emotional, take a breath, take a moment, think things through. And this kind of goes in hand with don't get emotional. So data, not drama is the saying we have. But beyond that, don't let people bully you into a bad deal. So a lot of new investors literally just get bullied into a deal. They get a realtor who gets tired or fed up with them because they feel like they're taking them to go look at too many properties and they haven't bought anything yet. And then literally the person just like buys something out of guilt or out of fear of judgment. Don't have that happen to you. Don't do something that doesn't fit your business model or your goal or your why out of like some sense of weird obligation. It does no one any good. So don't get emotional. If you're going to be in this game for the long term, focus on relationships over transactions. Transactions will make you money today. Relationships will make you money for life. And that's a very powerful concept. And real estate investing, regardless of where you do it, it's relatively a small world. So like here in Canada in particular, like Ontario is just like, it's a tiny clique of real estate investors realistically that are doing any volume size of transactions. And so it doesn't take long for your reputation to precede you, for the better or worse. And I would really encourage everyone to focus on building those relationships because that's where it's at. And the third tip I would give, so data, not drama, relationships versus transactions. And then just understand that it's about the journey. So again, if your first deal isn't super successful, don't panic over it. Just make sure that you're taking great lessons, takeaways from that, and then move on and implement and iterate. To me, anything that I have that you might view as success, understand that that's built on a foundation of failures. So like, I literally just view it as constantly failing my way forward. Never do anything perfect the first time and never really intend to either. So it's gotten to the point now where I view a lot of the businesses or deals I get into, not through the lens of like, is this business or deal going to make me money? But almost knowing that, oh, this is going to help me get better so that next time I can do it bigger and better. So just kind of always doubling down. What would you consider offering a realtor for his access to run comps yourself or is trying to get Geo Warehouse yourself best? Cody, so each person's going to have their own opinion and perspective on that, but in general, I would really focus on building a relationship with a great realtor. Unless, Geo Warehouse is great, but still, it's only going to give you certain access to things. There's a lot of value in being able to also have access to the realtor board. So there's a lot of information on the realtor board listings that you wouldn't get access to if you just had a Geo Warehouse subscription. Geo Warehouse is going to cost you like $4,000 to $8,000. Now, if you've got just a couple one-off properties where you just want to get some basic information, you can pay like $40 a RIP, right? I forget, is it like Land Express or Express Land or something like that? It's a Terranet company, or Terra Express maybe is what it's called. Anyways, if you go to Terranet, you can find your way there. So you can always do that for a couple small transactions, but it'll add up pretty quick if you're doing any volume. So yeah, I would really focus on building a relationship with a realtor unless you want to become a realtor. One more tip, add value than leeching value. Yeah, that's absolutely critical. What else is going on here? Do you do credit checks on potential tenants? We don't do it that often, Kyle, just because it's not necessarily that predictive of their success. So like depends upon the price point of rentals you're doing, but for us, and I know Casey Wong has said the same thing, he's less concerned about a credit check and more about just references and really trying to be able to read the tenant and read between the lines and that sort of thing. But each landlord has their own perspective. And again, it depends upon the type of property. The higher end you go, probably the more valuable a credit check might be, at least to a certain point. Have you done projects such as adding additional units, extra floor, or even a laneway home before refinancing? We've never done any like laneway homes or carriage homes. We've definitely like gutted properties, essentially rebuilt them from the inside. But most of our BRRRRs are going to be relatively basic just because most of the time I think that's where the return on time is. So to me, that's really the decision to be made there. The more complicated, bigger projects, I'm often going to prefer to wholesale those. All right, I'm going to smoke a little bit more and then I think I'm going to wrap it up soon, guys. So hit me up with any more questions before we call it a night. Any other questions? Do you need a contractor's license to pull permits? How's the weed strain? It's good, Mike. This is wedding cake. So tonight we are smoking wedding cake. So for permits, you're going to need to like be the owner or have some sort of credentials. Cool. Any tips on a first-time home buyer regarding condo fees? Some places are within by budget, but condo fees are high. Yeah, so like look at the history of the condo fees and definitely make sure you understand whether it's got a strong reserve fund and stuff like that as well. Oh, my joint's falling apart here. This is what happens when you roll your own. But yeah, condo fees can definitely eat up a lot of your cash flow if you're not careful. And understand that they can change. They're dynamic, right? So if things aren't going well for the condo board, it's not unusual for them to have to raise the cost of those condo fees. So again, depending on the property, that can add up significantly. Like I know there's some properties here in London that you're looking at like $600, $700, $800 a month in condo fees. That's a mortgage payment, in my opinion. So no, thank you. And again, the one thing I don't like about condos is simply we've got less control, right? So the reason I'm attracted to real estate investing in the first place is because of my ability to control the underlying asset, pivot the business model, do different things, try and bring it up to its highest, best, most efficient use. And most condo boards and things like that are naturally going to be a bit restrictive in that regards. And again, I'm going to have less control over that asset then. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Appreciate everyone hanging out with me tonight. The 37 of you that smashed the like button on YouTube, really appreciate the love. Those of you hanging out with me on Instagram, also appreciate it. Every Monday night, 9:20 Eastern Standard Time, we're going live here in the bathroom, so definitely hit me up. And always love answering your questions and just hanging out. So again, appreciate you guys. Stay safe, don't get infected, all that good stuff. And I'll see you on the next live stream. And thank you, YouTube. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And we will see you on the next live stream. We're posting this video to Instagram. And it is posted. Oh, God, they make you write a title now. Anyways, thank you, YouTube. I'll see you tomorrow.